Good afternoon, everybody. The rain jacket isn't symbolic or anything. I've been getting after it since 7:30 this morning when it was pouring rain, so apologize for the informality. First, as I stated earlier this week publicly and has been reported about the DOGE Audit, looking forward to hosting the DOGE staff here on Monday and Tuesday. Obviously, our teams have gotten together and to compile all of the requests that are coming in. But I said a few months ago and say again today, we are proud of the track record that we have here at the City of Pensacola in terms of our fiscal responsibility, our bond rating, our annual audits that happen. And so while I fully support the efforts of making sure that governments are spending wisely and spending your dollars, citizen dollars, wisely, that we wouldn't be immune to that. And I certainly look forward to having any conversation that they'd like to have about how we spend our money here at the City of Pensacola and how we spend our citizens' taxpayer dollars. So a couple things that you should actually have a letter. Our response letter should be walked down to you while I'm talking here at some point. So we'll have that posted here in a second. And a few of the things that we'll point out. It's obviously a longer letter, but just to hit some of the highlights for clarification purposes, the city hasn't raised the millage since 1994, fiscal year 1994, and today's rate of 4.2895 mils remains well below the fiscal 94 rate of 5.057 and below the statewide municipal average of 4.8286. So we're more than half a mil lower than the average in the state of Florida, as reported by the Florida Department of Revenue in 2024. Also, it was pointed out, the $11 million difference in the last 5 years. I think one thing that's important is where do we spend most of our money in our general fund, regardless of property tax? It's on public safety. It's on police and fire. You guys have heard me mention that before. So if you take out CRA dollars and you talk about the property tax revenues for the City of Pensacola that hit the general fund, the largest line item expense is payroll for police and fire. And if you include the full freight of that property tax, there's a $20 million gap between what we generate in property tax revenue into our general fund and the total cost to run police and fire. So, meaning if it stayed as is, we are coming up with $22 million a year in excess of our property tax to just foot the bill for all of our amazing police and fire and our heroes out there keeping the city safe every day. And I think it's important to point out too, and I certainly understand, measuring and looking at one data point of population. I do think, I would point out in the last 5 years we've had 178 certificates of occupancy for commercial buildings. That those aren't factored into any type of population, but that is tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars into the tax base, and that's why we want to be an investable city. Is that investment doesn't just come through with someone living within the 22 square miles of landmass here, but it's also folks that build their office buildings here, that move jobs here. Those are things that certainly measure economic prosperity. So those 178 certificates of occupancy for commercial buildings, and in those last 5 years also 1,282 certificates of occupancy for residential units as well. So we have built 1,300 new homes here in the City of Pensacola over the last 5 years. And if you actually measured it to permits, which would include improvements, renovations, large-scale renovations, there's been 3,600 permits issued for commercial and residential improvements in the last 5 years as well. So those are things that may not always tick the box of a full-time resident that actually do have a positive impact on the tax base and help share the tax responsibility that happens at the city. So, again, we mention and let the team know we don't mind bragging on the fact that we're one of the top 25 cities for job growth in the United States, as of according to LinkedIn, as of just a few weeks ago, and the only city in Florida that's on that list. And we attribute it to many things, including the growth at our airport at 104% in the last 10 years, up to 3 million passengers. And again, nothing adversarial whatsoever. We are more than welcome Blaise Angolia, the CFO, and his team here to look at anything that they'd like to look at. We have absolutely nothing that we are concerned about, and all we want to do is be helpful and make sure that the process that's happening all over the state, that we are helpful in allowing that process to take place, because we feel that we're in a very, very good place right now, and that we feel that we do a great job being stewards of taxpayer dollars. So we'll have those meetings Monday, Tuesday, and again, you guys will have that letter, more to come in the next week. Very productive community input meeting this morning at Fricker. Ended up being there about 2.5 hours, talking with folks afterwards. And we were able to get some more impact of the design of the project. I think we're able to kind of bust some myths and concerns, and valid concerns about what's going to happen with Addicts Court next door. What's that was a concern. Will the things happen that are being talked about, like the senior center, and to assure folks that these grant funds, whether you believe the mayor or not, of saying that we're going to put a senior center in, we can't cash the check if the senior center isn't put in. And so trying to assure folks that these aren't aspirational ideas. We have worked diligently to apply for these grants, to be awarded these grants, and we are absolutely obligated to the anchor aspects of every single piece of this. The meetings today that are very valuable is going over those types of things of that can be deciding factors in a small way. What do you want to see in the weight room? What do you want to see in the gym? Little things like that can, of course, be determined and be subjective. But the anchor parts, which is we have to renovate the existing footprint of Fricker Center for the $5.5 million grant, and that we have to add a senior center with health opportunity, economic opportunity, and education opportunity, are absolutely obligations of the grant, and something that we will be seeing through to the finish line. So it was good to share that information and get some good feedback on what the surrounding community wants to see. Cobb Center, while we're talking about community centers, the bid process closed on Tuesday afternoon on our side, and the bids opened at 10 a.m. this morning. Were opened, excuse me. The bid process closed. The bids that were submitted were open at 10 this morning. So we received 3 bids. The lowest bidder had actually withdrew their bid, and the remaining 2 are now in the bid review process by our purchasing department. If you guys recall, this is that phase 1 of saving and restoring Cobb Center that was well on its way, with yet again deferred maintenance and neglected maintenance here in the city that tends to cross my desk certainly more often than I would like, because it's been forgotten about for generations. That we were able to jump in, and our amazing team, Public Works, Russell, and Facilities, were able to come in, and we didn't allow this community center to reach a point of no return that we've already seen previously. So this is that phase 1 of getting that outside envelope fixed, those old glulam arches, the roof of the actual community center portion, as well as the gym. So very much looking forward to that, and absolutely much needed. So it should go before council on September 25th for the award of the project, once we go through that procurement of who will be working on it. The latest on Bay Bluffs Park, we finally have a grant agreement between the city and Conservation Florida. If you recall, we've been waiting many, many months now for DEP and Conservation Florida to get all of their I's dotted and T's crossed. We now have a grant agreement in hand between City and Conservation Florida, and our legal department has reviewed it. And moving forward, the plan now is to get that agreement, supplemental budget resolution, and a draft site dedication in front of the City Council at the September 11th meeting. So that will be our first and major tangible step, followed by that community outreach and feedback about what we want to see long term for that $2.2 million at Bay Bluffs Park. So I've shared that in some of the town halls recently around the area, but we'll obviously be making a concerted effort specific to Bay Bluffs Park, and I know we've got lots of interested folks that are deservingly impatient about how long it's taken, and all I can assure everybody is there's no one more impatient about getting Bay Bluffs Park done inside these city limits than me. So whatever urgency you feel, add 10%, and that's the urgency I feel about getting Bay Bluffs Park up and going. So very, very excited for that. Update on recycling. We're now up to 2,700 households, which is about 13% of our current sanitation. We were aiming for 10% in the first month, so we were actually surpassing what we expected we were going to have as this loads on. We're starting to get, there was some more direct mail that went out to every city resident this past week. I received it at my house. I know we've been getting lots of feedback from that. So those postcard opt-ins that went in, we've already gotten 200 of those. So we're seeing some rapid reaction to some of the mail that's going out. And to date, I don't have the full cumulative clean contaminated percentages, but I have the weight. We're at 42,000 pounds of clean recyclables so far, cumulatively. Stormwater projects update. Just this and one other thing. Stormwater projects update. Main Street at B, right over here. Despite the rain this summer, we still are on track as we had announced in early July when the closure took place. We are still on track to reopen this intersection on Friday, September 5th. So the one right there in front of Joe Patty's, that will have that positive impact on about 1,700 homes. I thought about and appreciated that this morning when I drove Main and E Street, and it was very, very, very wet, to say the least. And that project will help alleviate a lot of that flooding that we see, street flooding we see on Main Street. The work on 9th and Bayfront, right there at Admiral Mason Park and VMP, that is set to wrap in about 4 weeks for that stormwater project. And the project at 12th Avenue in Fairfield under the trees there on 12th Avenue is ahead of our 40-day schedule, and we're looking like reopening more like at the end of this month versus what we expected for next month. So always weather permitting on every single one of these. If something, we can't control that, but it is good news that it looks like we are on track or potentially ahead of schedule on all three of those major stormwater projects. Last thing is an update on the Portland Loos. CRA board approved on Monday afternoon to move forward with the installation at MLK Plaza, the Blake Doyle Skatepark, and we have a price to put a second Portland Loo at Bruce Beach. We did that as an alternate bid. I don't know that we're going to do that, but we have that option. And we anticipate the work starting early September and to be completed by the end of November. My priority is to get MLK Plaza done first. I feel like DIB has been waiting, and lots of folks, public and private, have been working on porta potties there for a long time. So all things being equal, we will do MLK Plaza first, skate park second. We are working through our partnership with University of West Florida about putting one on Museum Plaza. That continues. That we had a hiccup. ECUA had identified some issues under the pavement that they thought were going to cause some concern. We actually went out, our team, again, they're so diligent and on top of stuff, our facilities team went out and did GPR, ground penetrating radar, to examine that potential concern. And as far as our look at it, we feel that concern has been alleviated. So now we're just waiting to hear back from ECUA if they'll further partner with us on this third one, the way that they've done, and we are so grateful for ECUA helping step up and save the taxpayer money by partnering with us on these first two that have saved hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so we are still moving ahead on the UWF thing, but just don't have a full update on that yet. That is everything I've got, and happy to take your questions.
Rick, you were here first. And the DOGE letter.
Yeah.
One of the things that they seem to be concerned about is Just City.
Mm-hmm.
You made a presentation. It's a big part of the Hollister-Williams. Why do you think that's being brought up?
Well, I don't want to speculate on. I mean, there's things. I think there's 62 items in there. I'd be remiss to speculate on what they. I'm not even sure technically who they is. At this point, I know right now it's an office are looking for, but. I'll say what I've already said. One, I welcome any examination, be it an annual audit that we always have or an audit from the state, because if I was insecure about the way that we handle taxpayer money, then I should have bigger problems than just DOGE calling in. So I don't want to speculate about what their potential concern is on that. However, I will say every opportunity that I've had with U.S. Conference of Mayors has been a learning opportunity, has been valuable, and certainly I'm in a position now heading up jobs, workforce, and education for every mayor in the United States that I think that we have proven that not only has the city extracted value from that, but I think that the City of Pensacola has built a good reputation nationally over our participation in all sorts of programs.
So what's the value of Just City for this, for us?
Yeah, well, listen, I feel like lots of different projects that we've had, I think we should always be looking at different perspectives about everything. And, you know, I always say, and this is in any instance, not with a DOGE letter or anything like that, but in any instance, we should always remain coachable. I think that's the thing that CEOs, sometimes we can fall in the trap of thinking we've got everything figured out or we know exactly how to do something. I come from the journalist mindset that I want to make sure I really try to understand. It's why I'm kind of a data-driven guy. I don't like to go on hyperbole or one email or one concern. I like to make sure we have as much information at the table as we can. So I think all of these experiences, help myself, help our staff learn something maybe we didn't know, and try to be a better city for it.
Mayor, the CFO claims that they're acting on government resources, people inside of local governments to make their decision on what cities and counties they audit. Mm-hmm. They're jumping over to Pensacola. Does that concern you? I mean, you've seen what they're asking for. Mm-hmm. You released a statement. You said your books are where they need to be. Does it concern you that he says they're acting on that? I mean, do you feel like someone in the city is pushing that? Is this politically motivated?
I don't think so. I don't. Again, my only concern about anybody looking at the books of the City of Pensacola is if I was insecure about something that they would find, and we're certainly not. And I believe in fiscal responsibility, and if anybody wants to examine fiscal responsibility, I think it's premature and it's completely speculative for anyone to think, and this is on good information, that for anyone to think that that the City of Pensacola was some specific target for some reason, or that it was politically motivated. That is not the indication that I've received. I feel like my expectation is to be collaborative with the team coming in, and to help them with whatever information that they'd like to have about the city. My expectation for our team is that the net result is not only that there isn't any significant issues, but as a matter of fact, I fully expect that an audit team would leave here maybe using the City of Pensacola as an example of how government should be run. So I can't speculate on what's going to be found or what the concerns are. I mean, again, I'd be speaking for people that I haven't spoken to, nor do I have their priority list. But we welcome them on site Monday and Tuesday. Happy to have any conversation that they want to have. We'll have our teams ready. We're getting computers ready. We've got, as I said, no concern here. We approach it in the spirit of collaboration, and we'll see how everything goes.
Will you all be here with them?
Yes, ironically, and you saw this in the letter. Ironically, we've kind of said, we have our budget happening too, so we don't want to come across as we may have different folks rotating in, like a basketball team, in terms of not for no other reason than not only do we have budget, we're actually changing our budget software for the first time in a million years. And so all of that onboarding training for our new software across the city is happening next week. So Amy Lavoie in finance might be in there for a couple hours, then it might be someone else from finance, et cetera. So we just wanted to forewarn them of that, not because that should be any concern, but yes, we will have staff ready and available. Again, we've already been planning on whatever access that they need to make that available to them. And again, looking forward to meeting the team and seeing what questions they have and go from there.
Mayor, does the August 7th letter characterization of the property tax growth in the city concern you? You spent a lot of time in this letter kind of correcting the way they characterized it in their letter. Does that the fact that they're characterizing it almost as like the city is raise taxes by $11 million. Does that concern you about what their motivations are?
Listen, I think everybody's allowed to have their different perspective, and if this office's priority perspective is solely comparing population to a non-tax increase, but a growth in property value, as I can't tell them what their favorite metric or best metric should be, but we have other ones too, and I think we were just pointing out that. And listen, I think they already know this. I mean, they've already been in other cities. Every city's unique in terms of funding stacks, in terms of what percentage of property tax actually is the general fund versus other resources. No one city in Florida is the same. So it's not, we're not arguing with or being adverse to whatever metrics they see as a priority. I think all we're doing is highlighting that. That when the population stays the same, yet 200 commercial buildings and 1,300 houses are built, that's going to have a positive impact on the tax base that isn't necessarily highlighted when the presumption is if your population doesn't go up means that investment isn't going up in the city that would therefore increase property tax. So, so again, I'm not arguing what they see as their case, but we certainly are making ours, and those are the points that we just wanted to highlight. Not only for this team to understand unique about our community, but also for our community to understand in terms of where their property tax dollars go.
Is there anything you feel like the city can't turn in that they're asking for, like the DEI requirement? Is there anything that you don't have that the city isn't a part of or never took part of, that kind of stuff?
Oh, yeah, yes. I mean, I think there's things that are requested, and again, I would be, it would be irresponsible for me to speak to, because remember, a lot of these audits go back to 2019, where, right. I was 3 years away from being in office, so I could speak much more knowledgeably to the last 2.5-ish years than I can the years previous to that. But as a matter of fact, I think, so if there's a program that's mentioned in there that happened in 2020 that isn't happening anymore in 2022 or 23, that there could be situations like that. But to answer your question directly, of the 62 things on there, is there any concern that we don't have the information or that it's something that we can't provide? Not at this moment. I think everything that's been asked for can be provided. That doesn't mean that, and the answer might be nothing. As they're going down the bulleted list, it doesn't mean that we have something that they've asked for. And I think there are two presumptive things publicly about this. One is this idea that we are being specifically targeted, that I don't necessarily believe. And the second thing is, if it's something that they're asking for, then they must be thinking specifically to Pensacola. If you go back and look at every letter that's been sent to every county and every city, the vast majority of those bullet points are the same in some of those questions. Those are not there. Yes, there are unique ones. Rick's already asked about one, but for the most part, these questions about Green New Deal, about DEI, a lot of those about procurement processes are carbon copy examples that are being asked around the state.
Mayor, on the Fricker Center meeting, I know that the overarching goal was to get input on the plans, but there was a bigger issue as far as the African American community. Do you feel you walk away with more trust or a better relationship?
I hope so, but that's not. I don't expect. The most irresponsible thing I could do is expect that trust is built in one meeting, I've learned a lot through this process. I've had more meetings than just this morning with community leaders, in the Black community, to make sure. Again, I think there's really a two-pronged process here. One is make sure that we are aligned in some general. We don't have to be aligned subjectively on opinion, but just make sure we're talking about facts. Again, like Addicts Court, like some of these other things, that make sure we're speaking in fact. But then, I think my goal is really not to take any perceived lack of trust personally, meaning I don't think lack of trust necessarily is built in 2 years. I think it's built generationally. So I wouldn't expect a 2.5-hour meeting to resolve generations of issues like, as many people brought up, well, we had meetings about this community center and it didn't happen. I wasn't here for that. The folks bringing that up know that, but it's a more philosophical than that and a higher scale than that, and I certainly respect that. And so I think we can just do the best that we can to communicate, best that we can to engage the community, not just in one meeting, and to do that with continuity. And we can always improve in that, whether it's on the west side at Fricker or on the east side at Bayview Park or in East Hill. So anyway, I think that should always be a work in progress for us to do the best job we can to narrate, to communicate, and listen, and make sure that what we end up with is a project that we're all proud of. And I feel like at the end of the day, that type of trust, and listen, we got a lot of things going on the west side of town. We're proud of that investment, and Rick, I'll say, sometimes it's ironic in a way, because some of the distrust is because of the investment, and from my seat, the investment is because this is a neighborhood generationally that's been left behind, and but I understand the anxiety and concern with that. So it is complex and understandable that there's some fear and some anxiety and frustration. And again, I try to not take it personally. I try to not have our staff or our administration take it personally. And we just listen and do the best that we can to end up with something that we all can appreciate. Nice.
Mayor, at the Fricker Center meeting, there wasn't, during the public forum, there was just the idea of the problem of gentrification and what it's doing to the black community. And I know you're having a town hall, but I mean, from your perspective, what can the city do about gentrification and changing demographics?
I think that topic is a lot like the housing topic. That if there was a clear, aligned answer on that in any city in the country, we'd all be saying it. When you use the word gentrification, there's two extremes to that. I think if a city or a county was buying up homes in a neighborhood and then going in and selling it for market rate and turning a profit on the backs of folks that they bought the house from, those types of egregious intentional changes in a neighborhood, that I can understand it. But there's the flip side of that, which is if a grandmother has lived in a house for 50 years, why do we buy houses? We buy houses to create generational wealth. And if a grandmother has bought a house for $25,000 and has decided to sell that house privately, house by house, certainly the government's not going to, the mayor or the government's not going to tell that grandmother they can't sell it. And so it's a complex challenge. And again, some is perception and opinion and optics, some is real. And so I think market conditions are the biggest catalyst to I'm talking about anywhere, not just in the city of Pensacola. Market conditions have a greater impact on those types of activities than anything a government can do. But we try to be mindful of that. We've talked about that at Hollis T. Williams, and a city government absolutely cannot unequivocally say this is going to happen or not happen in a neighborhood. We don't. Again, market conditions control a lot of that, but there are steps and tactics and things that you could take that including controlling property. And I mean the city, where you can now set priorities that are mindful of the neighborhood, for example. And that's like we've talked about doing at Baptist. So very difficult conversation, and I liken it to housing because everybody's got a different definition of what that means. Sometimes it's considered house by house, which I mentioned, and I may not necessarily agree with, and there could be extreme examples. And I don't mean in this city, but in other cities. So, listen, I understand concerns about that. That's certainly part of this job, is to hear perspectives and learn perspectives from everybody about every topic. And so we try to take that in and understand it the best we can. But as it pertains to the Fricker Center, we are trying to take a building that was built in the 1930s and make it a real amenity and a true community center for this neighborhood. Period. And there's no other strings other than that. Is that this is the largest single investment that will ever go into, or so far, it will ever go into a community center in this city, and it will provide not just a gymnasium and not just a weight room. It will provide a senior center, health opportunity, job opportunity, and education opportunities. And so we are obligated to that. I am personally obligated to that, as I told the folks today, and looking forward to that project happening.
Mayor, is there anything to do with Spirit Airlines at Pensacola Airlines?
Not that's come across. I did see the report. Nothing that's come across our desk. They full operation at this point. Obviously, they are a critical. Every one of our carriers is critical, but we like having as much service as possible. But I would even say specifically with the inter-Florida service, the daily service nonstop to Orlando, Fort Lauderdale. And so those types of routes are important for our citizens and for our visitors. We certainly hope that things can get worked out and they could stick around. But as of now, I'd get Jason to defer you. Matt Coughlin would probably know the hour-to-hour, day-to-day update better than me.
Mayor, going back to the whole issue of gentrification, I guess, do you think the city is doing enough to create affordable housing? And do you think the state and federal government should be more active in that space, especially just more general, just the housing prices in general that are kind of causing that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a big question. A lot of perspectives on that. What I'll say is, I'll mention, I think I told you guys this after we went and met with the Intergovernmental Affairs Office for the Trump administration in D.C., but I think this is the best way to encapsulate the answer to your question is, there's lots of federal grants out there, and the red tape around those federal grants, therefore state grants in many cases, like Fricker, where it's technically from Florida Commerce, but it could be for federal dollars. Many times there's so much red tape around them that, my fellow mayor, Rickman in Columbia, South Carolina, uses this example that they built houses on their own for about $170,000, and then they received grant funding, and by the time they built those, according to the rules, it took longer, and they were $339,000 each. So, you actually could mitigate the total cost of the grant just in the red tape that's required. So the spirit of being up there was saying, hey, if grant funding, if finances are tight and we're trying to go another notch on the belt and tighten things up in our budget federally, then I think the next best thing you can do to help catalyze housing affordability and all that is then just make it easier. If there isn't going to be grants, let's make it easier on local governments, on the Habitat for Humanities of the world, the nonprofits. Let's cut some of this red tape so we can move quickly. What we've learned, and I think what we've learned in the city, we had the meeting yesterday with HPA. That was awesome, seeing all the dozens of contractors and subcontractors who helped build those 3 scattered site homes in partnership with Habitat and the city at Jackson Street, East Street, and Spring Street. So it was great to see all our community coming together with all of these folks. We have the will to do it, and we know how to do it. But I think speed is, for every few houses we can build, and I mean as a community, as a city, as a county, every few houses we can build, the need grows greater. I say that's a complex question in the sense that I don't know that just dollars fixes everything. It helps, certainly nice, but there's other pieces to this if we really want to start attacking this crisis, including how quick can you move? And there's some instances where I'd rather move faster than it is as important to have grant dollars. If we were doing something in a CRA, for example, hey, we may have the funding for it, but the difficulty to go through to get tax credits. I mean, the Motor Lodge, a perfect example. If you're going to wait on somebody with a 4% or 9% tax credit, it's super competitive, and only 8 out of 46 got funded in Florida a couple years ago. So speed is our enemy as much as dollars available. I think, in the housing issue. And so, for example, after these three, what I would envision is trying to work on how do we go to 14? How do we go to 20? How do we, it's the Malcolm Young, the spirit of that was, how do we attack this at scale? Baptist Hospital, those types of things that we're trying to take on because we know, Motor Lodge as well, we know that one house at a time is not going to cut it. And so, I don't know what the exact answer of what the federal government can do outside of certainly trying to make it easier on developers and make it easier on local governments to be able to execute.
Mayor, what are the goals of setting up this inlet storage spot for the port?
Yep.
What's the story behind that?
Yeah, so what we all know about the characteristics of the Port of Pensacola is its prime location is a huge benefit in some ways, and it's only 50-ish acres can be a hindrance in some ways in terms of the top line potential growth of having this great deep water port asset to help create jobs and build the economy. The best example I can give that's happening right now is GE is driving nacelles down, and so people see the nacelles on port and they assume they came in from boat. Really, it's storage area, and they're paying. It's great. They're a great customer. They're paying us. We love working with them. They're paying us for that storage, but that storage could take place on this finite 50 acres, or it could also take place somewhere with a rail spur and offsite somewhere else. And so the potential of an inland port only catalyzes our potential growth at both the port facility and the inland port. The inland port doesn't have to just be for storage, asphalt, and a train spur. There can be businesses that are built at that inland port as well. And so, I think if the characteristic of your potential opportunity at a port is that you're space limited, then let's go find space. And so I'm really excited about that idea, about the project of being able to increase our capacity. And that means when people call us at the port, we can say yes more often because we've got a little more land and a little more leverage to be able to do things.
What's it do for the port itself, though, as far as, does it open it up for other opportunities for it?
It does, yeah, because again, I mean, if you were to talk to Lance right now, we're kind of at capacity from a storage standpoint, right now, so it takes a little pressure off of that, where we can still help our customers, and actually we would be able to potentially expand and actually further relationships with folks like GE and others that are using it as storage. Like anything else, if your bowl is this big and now it's this big, it just opens up more opportunity for us to do things at both places. And so
You see bringing another more like maritime research or expansion
Correct.
of American Magic, is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think our mission of that line of industry remains the same. I want to be clear. We're not hindered at this moment. We're not hindered by. It's not like, oh, well, we can't create these jobs because we've got this storage happening. Obviously, that's not the case at the moment, but we anticipate that it will be, and that we're trying to be out in front of that. And so, let's say someone called us tomorrow and said, hey, we want to build a building, and then now that would have some negative impact on someone that was using some of our storage space. Man, I'd hate to say no to somebody. I'd hate to turn away revenue and job opportunity. Why not have this other option where we can say yes to both? And so, being 50 acres in the heart of the downtown is a challenge. We can't snap our fingers and be Savannah, the Port of Savannah tomorrow, and be cargo container, and that type. That is the challenge. But we're trying to address that challenge by increasing our overall capacity in the port operation. So more to come on that. I think conversations so far have been promising, and we'll learn a lot more in the coming weeks. Anything else?
Mayor, do you have any response to this FDOT memo that came out earlier this summer about street art that is with a political or ideological message? There's the Black Lives Matter mural on A Street, and it's the FDOT memo said if street art is removed on all public roads, the state may withhold funding. Have you any discussions about that or aware of that at all?
Yeah, I hadn't thought about it since the time I read it till you just asked me, but we got a few irons in the fire, higher priority than that, to be honest. But I'll say, like we always would, if there's state law that's preempting, we plan on complying with state law, but we have not heard from our district office directly about anything or any concerns about anything. Certainly, we are not, installing any street art about any politics anywhere. So that hasn't come up. But we'll comply with whatever state law comes in. But we have spent zero bandwidth on that. And again, to be honest with you, I hadn't even re-entered my brain since I read it until you just asked me right now. Anything else? All right. Thank y'all. Appreciate it.